I'm like, no, this guy, go get some therapy. I don't care if you're a vampire. I don't care if you're a werewolf. Go get some therapy. Then you can date.
All right, you guys ready to howl at the moon?
Ow! Ow!
There you go.
Welcome to Count Floyd's Horror Chiller Theater, where we'll talk about our favorite lycanthropes this week.
Well, lycanthrope entertainment, anyway.
Yeah.
I don't know any lycanthropes personally. Maybe you got some friends.
I know a lot of different people.
I forget, there was something
I never kiss and tell.
There's something I was watching recently, and I remember like sitting in the theater, and like there was a character who had like monobrow, like a high school kid, and I leaned over and went, werewolf. And my friend's like, what? And short off.
Oh, oh, that's awesome.
It's like, nailed it. Know that monobrow.
First giveaway.
Well, you know,
Unibrow.
Yeah, fair enough. In, you know, lycanthropic legends from Eastern Europe, that was one of the signs.
Sure.
I mean, also hair on the back of the hands, like very hairy, but having the one connected eyebrow is like, dude, that guy, we should kill him. Of course, they had a lot of reasons to kill people randomly back then.
Yeah. But wasn't it
They were a woman.
The whole thing with werewolves that came from like what was actually a serial killer, but we didn't know what to call it?
Yeah, exactly. Same with vampires. You know,
exactly.
there are rare cases where people take a lot longer to decay, and if someone is suspected, they dig them up and go, oh my God, they're definitely vampires. Look, they should be more decayed. That's not, okay, that's fine. I mean, I would love to believe that vampires and werewolves are real, but I don't think
I would not. Because they would have way too much power over us.
Well, if they were real, they clearly don't have a clear route to doing that. Or they would, right?
Yeah, you'd think so.
Or maybe they're just too cool. Maybe they're just like, nah, man, we're just gonna kick back.
I walk in the moonlight quite a bit, and I do always have my dog with me. So maybe it's like maybe my dog is the one who's setting him off.
Right. The dog's like, no, she's cool.
Yeah,
she's one of us.
Yeah.
Wait, are you a werewolf? Let me look at your eyebrows.
Oh, see, quite manicured.
Yeah, see, you can't tell.
You wouldn't know.
You wouldn't know. Yeah, she could be hiding it with a really good.
Wait till the full moon.
Oh, her canines are a little pronounced. Anyway, I'm Chris from oneofus.net.
I'm Martin Thomas from Double Toasted.
And I'm Danni, and I'm definitely not a werewolf.
Yeah, that's what all the werewolves say.
Things a werewolf would say.
You know, going back for the werewolf lore goes back about as far as vampire lore does in real life, but it also in entertainment goes back as far. I mean, obviously the most famous example in the early days was the Universal horror film, The Werewolf, starring Lon Chaney Jr. Yeah, The Wolfman, sorry.
Yeah.
Which is still really one of the better of the Universal ones.
Sure.
And so, like, pretty much almost all of the tropes that we associate with werewolf movies come from that movie.
Yep. The pentagram, the silver.
The old Romany woman telling you the story that you get bit, then you're infected, and then you turn into one.
I feel like of all of those Universal monsters, the Wolfman was the most sympathetic.
Yeah, he was definitely one. Well, Frankenstein's monster is pretty sympathetic.
No, you do feel for him.
Yeah.
But, you know, there's this thing that Lon Chaney, one thing that Lon Chaney really added to the werewolf mythos that's much more subtle that you don't always notice, but it's really that sadness. Like at one point she's like, he has a sadness about him that I think is really beautiful. And that is like, to me, just like the pinnacle of his performance and the nuance that he delivered as that character that just has lived on.
I mean, one of the strongest definitions of werewolf things as well, certainly not across the board, but is that unlike other monsters, they only spend a little bit of each month as a monster, and they have no control while they're a monster, and they tend to aim for the people they care for in real life. So they are a tragic figure by definition. They are just a normal person the rest of the time. And also, there's no getting out of it.
There's no getting out of it, but also you lose yourself and you're doing things that you are completely not aware of.
Yeah.
Unlike Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, where it's like, asshole, you know what you're doing.
After a while, he's like, you know what? Fuck it, I'm just going to take
Right.
Yeah.
But with the werewolf, it's the only thing you can relate it to is being blackout drunk.
Yeah.
If you've ever been blackout drunk and people are like, you just said things that are really in your heart, and you're like, no, I had no
I just said
idea.
things. You're right about that.
I've said things that have been in my head swirling around that I've implanted from other things, but nothing I would ever do in real life. I have no recollection of it.
Yeah.
I mean, but you got to take responsibility for it, because if not you, then who?
That wasn't my fault. I was a werewolf.
No, but it's the kind of thing they carried over into The Incredible Hulk TV series,
Mm-hmm.
where it was a weekly. I'm trying to get to a new town, reestablish myself, hope everything goes well. It does not, because at some point I blacked out and caused a whole lot of chaos.
Yeah, and which is why I got to put on the sad music in the backpack and go hitchhike down the highway at the end of every
Well,
episode.
and there's this sort of like idea that the wolf is always inside of you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that also allows the story to work as a metaphor for a lot of marginalized people who throughout history weren't able to really be themselves in public, or could only be themselves in a way that they were able to when they lost their inhibitions and lost control, like with alcohol or substances. And then there is that sadness that comes afterwards of like this person who is living as sort of like a shadow of themselves, because there's this part of them that belongs to the beast and always will be a part of the beast. And that's sort of the sadness that you're
the sadness,
seeing.
the guilt.
And Lon Chaney, I mean, his face is just, I mean, you look at him by the end of that movie just straight in the face and you just want to cry.
Yeah. No, it's a very tragic tale, no question, and it still holds up. But we're kind of talking about this episode a little more modern interpretations of the werewolf. And Danny, I know you, but she like starts with the email going, "I'm picking these two." Like, God, that's great.
I was like,
your
this
topic.
is my idea, this is my topic, and these are my movies. So the first one I want to talk about is obviously a classic. Everybody loves it, but American Werewolf in London.
Can't front on that.
I mean, I think it really brought back the werewolf mythos and really repopularized it. The makeup, the effects are absolutely stunning.
Some of the best, I think, the best werewolf effects ever done.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I was reading how. I'm sorry. Who did it?
Was it Rob Bottin? Or
No. Not Kenny Baker.
What? John Landis.
No, damn it.
Who did what in it?
The effects.
Rob Bottin.
No,
Wasn't it Rick
Nope.
Baker?
Rick Baker.
Was it Rick Baker?
Yeah, I was saying
Okay.
Kenny
Eric
Baker. I
said
was like,
Rob-
no, that's
Rick
R2D2.
Baker.
No. Rick Baker was working on The Howling,
Yeah.
and then American Werewolf came up, so he gave his assistant Rob Bottin. He said, "You
Right.
finish The Howling. I'm going to
Which,
American
to be
Werewolf."
fair,
and
also has really good
it really
special
does.
effects.
And
Yeah.
that's been my. I
Those
saw that in 1981. I was like, this is my favorite werewolf movie.
Those
of all
two
time.
guys are the two best physical effects artists of their era. Like
Yeah.
Baker did the Thing effects, which
Mhm.
are right up there as well.
Oh.
But when you look at how well done they do, like, I mean, just the thing with the guys, the snout,
snout,
growing
the
out of his natural
feet.
face.
The feet
Yeah.
get me every
Just,
time.
just
Oh,
as
yeah.
his hand expands into like a paw. you're
Because
like,
prior to that, it was just it was an overlay change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that showed it as like, oh, it's painful.
Yeah.
Yes.
dang.
Yeah, you hear bones cracking again,
Yeah.
like with the sound design, and that you hear bones cracking as they extend, and it's very visceral, and it's really terrifying. And also, like again, you have I forget the actor's name who starred in the role.
Oh, David Naughton.
Yes. First of all, swoon. Second of all, oh my god. I mean, yeah, he is. He's a tragic he's a tragic, loving figure. And that's the other thing, right, about this Wolfman sort of archetype, is that this person is also very more emotionally accessible as a man than most of the men of their age
True.
are. I felt that way about Lon Chaney's character as well.
Oh,
Like
well,
he's just
yeah.
a little more open to saying like, oh, I feel this way and I have no shame about talking about how I, find you attractive or I'm feeling romantic. And this character is very much in the same vein. Just sort of watching, they did such a good job of retelling that story in a very different way, in a way that feels unique and original, but still touches on all of the beats of, it starts out with him killing his best friend. So you automatically sort of get that sadness
the
of him trying.
the werewolf kills.
The
his
werewolf
best
kills his best friend, and him being a part of that and surviving that, so he's got like this survivor guilt and trying to figure out like, there's also that element of you're crazy, you're imagining this, because all the people from this tiny village are telling him that that's not what happened, even though it very clearly is. And it's just like, it's really moving. And what's so funny, the only flaw that I have with that movie is that like he stays for weeks. And they're like, oh, the guy from your embassy is here. And the guy's like, okay, cool. So you can just go home whenever you want and everything's fine. And he's like, I think I'll just stay here. But there's like a random dream sequence with Nazis that's really good. Like there's just so much happening in this movie that is really good.
And you were, as much as you're swooning for David, I'm swooning for
Oh my
Jenny
God.
Agutter. who was in Logan's Run as like the love interest in there as well.
Okay.
I had just as I was like a preteen, I was like, I'm in love with Jenny Gutter. She's the love interest in this.
Yeah.
But fail to mention, this is a horror comedy, and it's really funny. Like there are points that are so funny. Because one of the things is, he keeps having these hallucinations. Are they really happening? Are they not? Of all the people that he has killed, but also including his friend who's gradually decaying more and more, who are like going, you don't understand. You get bit by a werewolf. Yes, it sucks, but there's no way out. And as long as you don't, the longer you take to kill yourself, the more people you're going to hurt. So please
and we're going to
yourself.
stick around and haunt you because we're tied to your life force.
Exactly.
And not only just your life force, but the life force of the wolf that bit you before, and that whole wolf lineage.
Which
line.
I know you're like, that's funny. It's really funny the way they do it.
his friend's really funny.
It was John Landis in his heyday when he could make funny movies.
Yeah.
And even as tragic as that was, it's like, man, you've taken all the fun out of being a werewolf.
It is, I would say, definitely like top 10. If you were like the person, I've never seen a horror movie, this is in the top 10 of ones you should start with.
Yes.
So like it's right up there among the very best. And I would just say flat out the best werewolf movie ever made.
I agree. Yeah. And again, going back to those practical effects with that scene, I think it's one of the movies that helped me make the connection between practical effects and what happens in fiction start to appreciate horror movies for their practical effects. Because before that, I was only really, because before I got into horror, I was really leaning on empathy. And I was like, why would you want to watch somebody being tortured or being in pain, only looking at it from that direct way?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, I get that.
It's an amazing movie.
Martin?
So a movie that had been recommended to me for decades, even loaned to me, that I decided to finally watch for this show and fell in love with was Dog Soldiers, which it's very similar in plot-wise to...
This isn't Paw Patrol, is it?
No.
Defund.
It's kind of, I was like, it's almost like Predator, where you have soldiers out in the woods and these, suddenly they're set upon by an elite killing machine.
Yeah, or machines. Because it's a multiple werewolves.
Yes. Soldiers kind of on, what do you call it? Not a practice run, but just exercises out in the Scottish, drills out in the Scottish Highlands. And suddenly there is a mutilated cow thrown into their midst, and they go to investigate, and their commander is sliced up by what turns out to be a werewolf. They make it to a cottage, and the rest of the movie is a siege movie. Where they're all locked in there, surrounded by werewolves, wondering how they're going to get out of it. And there's a whole thing of, one of the main guys, his old commander who tossed him out of the regiment because he wouldn't kill a dog, is there because they were rescuing him.
Liam Cunningham.
Yeah. Was Sir Davos from
Game of Thrones.
From Game of Thrones. Yeah. And Kevin McKidd, who you probably know from Train Spotting or Grey's Anatomy, sort of the main character. And even Sean Pertwee, who you might know as Alfred from Gotham, is also in it. So you got some familiar faces. But this whole siege of, we're in a cottage in the Highlands where we can't get a signal out. Nobody can come rescue us. We're besieged by werewolves. And there's some people in here with us who are not trustworthy.
Isn't that the joy of every siege movie? Is the monster outside or is the monster
exactly
inside?
If it's a cross between the locals that they don't know they can trust, people who are actually living in this house, or the fact that the guy who got bit is starting to act a little strange.
Right. Also, our commander who we saved, how did he get those injuries to begin with?
One of the things about it that set it apart from a lot of the other werewolf movies is this is a straight up action horror. Yeah. This is like you said, Predator, Aliens, what have you, just with werewolves.
Yeah.
The effects are super tight.
It's all practical effects. And they hired dancers instead of stuntmen to play the werewolves. So they'd have a certain grace to them. And while the werewolf effects are, the makeup for the werewolves is nowhere on the level of American Werewolf in London, you don't see them a lot. They do a lot with just keeping them in the shadows, so it's not a focus. But being
with a siege narrative, I feel like that's really effective.
It is effective, and being a siege narrative, you get so much more of the characters. All the actors step up, And there's very few times where you're going like, oh, that looks a little fake because you're so locked into it. And to start out, even if you thought like, oh, it's just kind of old, it is a point halfway through where you're just kind of like this the whole time watching it. Very well done. I'm so glad I watched this finally.
I've also been telling you to watch that movie for
I know.
years.
I know.
I think that's also in the top 5 of werewolf films.
I think so.
And now you have to see that one because it's just that good. I think it's Neil Jordan. Is that correct?
Okay.
It's not Jordan. It's
a different
Neil Marshall.
Yeah, Neil Marshall. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm almost finished with my annual rewatch of all the Universal monster movies, so
Nice.
This is a good time to be accepting offerings for other things I should watch.
And that is definitely one of them. Like my picks are a little more on the controversial side because not everybody loves them, but I go back again and again and again to the Jack Nicholson, Michelle Pfeiffer movie Wolf, which is also a horror comedy. It's also got James Spader in it, who's delightfully James Spader. I mean, he's playing every
James Spader playing James Spader.
Well, that's just so wild to have James Spader and Jack Nicholson in the same movie.
I know, and they are indeed nemesis.
This is a very acidic cast.
It's supposed to be an update to the classic Wolfman tale, but it really isn't. I mean, it's having it's there to have fun.
I would not cast Jack Nicholson in the shadow of Lon Chaney. Like, in what weird universe?
Because it's much more into the sexy side of it. Like this was in the after Bram Stoker's Dracula, which is like, ooh, let's make him all sexy.
Yeah.
And they were like, well, why can't we do that for the Wolfman? And this also is very horny. I mean, he's got a thing going on with Michelle Pfeiffer. And back then they were both super hot. And, James Spader, whatever, your taste may vary, but, a lot of people thought he was super hot as well.
Yeah.
And, when they're wolfing out, they look cool. They made them look like, wow, these are kind of sexy vampires. They're not just like, they're still
sexy
more
werewolves.
on the human side. Werewolves, yeah. They still look more human, so they've got retaining more of the sex appeal, a little less doggy,
Yeah.
So they're more like, you just see their animalistic nature coming out and the cool glowing eyes and stuff. I've always had a great time with Wolf. It got roundly slammed by and dismissed by most critics.
Well, what I remember from it, seeing it in the theater when it came out, was that it's great for 2/3, and then the last third of it was just dang it, you guys had so much, and now it just kind of feels...
Well, it goes exactly where it looked like it was
down.
going, I think. And I think the rest of it had so many surprises. You're kind of like, I was kind of hoping there'd be a little more surprise at the end. But there's like the nice, it's a minor spoiler, really. This movie's been out for a long time. But like, of just realizing at the very end, Michelle Pfeiffer's a werewolf now, too. I was like, I want to see Wolf 2 with Michelle Pfeiffer as a werewolf.
I remember thinking that as well.
God damn it. We're never getting Wolf 2. It's too late. Sorry.
And, they're rebooting everything.
Yeah, I know. But it wouldn't be Michelle Pfeiffer. Was she going to come back?
It could totally be Michelle Pfeiffer. She's still kicking
around.
ass.
She's like 72, and she'd be like, you've been cursed with being a werewolf all this time? She's like, yeah, I don't care if I kill a few people every full moon.
She's in Marvel movies now. She can totally do it.
That's fair. But yeah, no, I mean, if you've heard bad things about it, you may be one of those people who are like, this isn't for me, but it certainly was for me. I find it kind of delightful.
You know what? There's so many movies you watch, at least for me, watched back in the day. I was just like, I don't care for this. And then rewatch them now, and I was like, you know what? At the time, I get why I didn't like it so much. But there's been so many movies that have tried to do this worse.
Yeah.
This one doesn't seem so bad.
Yeah,
by that, I'm referring to Van Helsing.
You went back to Van Helsing,
went back and rewatched Van Helsing just this week. Because it was one where it was nominated like, you guys should do a bad movie roast of Van Helsing. I was like, all right, I remember not liking it, but was it that bad? And then rewatching it, I was like, you know what? Rewatching it ain't so bad.
We've seen so much worse stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
That's how I feel about Constantine. I watched it for the first time the other day, and I was like, yeah, it's not amazing, it's not life-changing, but like, it's also not nearly as bad as everybody ragged on it for being. Like,
a lot of the people in the geek community were very upset because this is not the comic book.
Right,
this is not even
I was one of those. But maybe if I rewatched it,
but hindsight does help you kind of.
Having gone back and rewatched it after I got over that, I was like, you know what? I enjoy Constantine. It's like, it's not, if you're like, I'll want to see the comic John Constantine or the animated John Constantine, this ain't him. Yeah. But they've just announced they're making a second one. So
I know.
After all these years, they're bringing back everybody.
Wait, why?
Yeah, even Peter Stormare is coming back as the devil.
Of course,
like,
he always does.
Well, he makes a good devil. Did you want a second choice? I know
I
you
do.
had.
I had a second choice.
Another one in the top 5 of all-time werewolf movies.
Shocking absolutely no one, but I immediately claimed Ginger Snaps.
Yes, you did.
Ginger Snaps is incredible. It is a life-changing movie for any person who watches it, but definitely anyone who was ever a preteen teenage girl. I think that there's a massive metaphor in there for, puberty and blossoming in your womanhood. That is both nuanced and really on the nose.
I was gonna say, I don't even know if I'd call it a metaphor. It's straight up.
It's
Puberty
very
makes you
on the
werewolf.
nose. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So, which is so funny because like in middle school when you were a girl and you got your first period, there was at least one boy in your class who did believe that made you a werewolf. So deep relate.
Well, I mean, if he smelled it out, then guess who's the werewolf?
Right? And I'm like, first of all, it is time for you and your mom to have a conversation that has nothing to do with me. But it's incredible. So one of the actresses who I actually came across this in the wrong order because I love watching things in the wrong order. One of my favorite psychological horror movies is the Soska sisters' American Mary. And I was such a huge fan of that actress. She does an incredible, amazing job all throughout that performance, and it really stuck with me. And then so I went back through her IMDb and found out that she was actually one of the young girls who starred in Ginger Snaps. And so it was really cool to like go back and see her sort of like as this very young character with this great, incredible horror story that I really related to. And especially like going back to that old Wolfman. We definitely associate the werewolf as a masculine figure, and pop culture wise, we really have throughout history. And Ginger Snaps really, not only like made it a more feminine thing, but a young teenage feminine thing, which, if you've ever been a teenage femme, there are definitely times where you feel wild and feral, just because of all of the emotions and
want to bite the heads off of your family.
Yeah,
yes,
definitely.
Absolutely. So there's just so much about it's just such a great movie. It's incredibly well done. It's beautifully acted.
It's charming, funny at points.
So funny, yeah.
It's shocking. It gets their points. It's one of those films that's great about like this is like very light violence. Oh my god!
Yeah. And the other thing is that like it's very it's a very different take on things. So it's not like other wolf movies where you kind of know what's going to happen towards the end. Like you've done this song and dance. So the ending is very satisfying as well, I feel like.
Yeah, they end up winning the big basketball game and then going home and that's Teen Wolf. That's a different werewolf movie. Sorry, I get those two confused.
I've never seen Teen Wolf.
It is actually pretty darn good.
I've heard. I know it's going to happen one day.
But
it's pretty darn good.
No, it is darn good.
Oh, okay.
But it's just some of the jokes are not going to fly.
They are definitely like most movies from the 80s have jokes, comedies have jokes that you're like,
that didn't age well.
And I'm not always super sensitive to these things. I go like, okay, in the context of the time, but that has somewhere I'm just like, dude.
Yeah, it gets Revenge of the Nerds level at points.
Yeah.
This is pretty...
Yeah, it makes it to where I couldn't in good conscience tell you to watch it without just putting a huge disclaimer on it.
Okay, all right.
Well, Martin, what was your next pick?
My next pick is the Astounding Wolf-Man, which is a comic book series, or at least... I guess limited, because I think it was only 25 issues.
It was supposed to be continuing, and I think they just they canceled it.
Ended it. But you turned me on to it.
As they do in comics.
It was written by Robert Kirkman, and it's kind of, I don't know if it started that way, but it's kind of a spinoff of Invincible.
Yeah.
And it's about a CEO, lovable guy, family guy, takes his wife and daughter out, and they're having a time out in the woods at a camp, and he gets mauled, and everybody assumes it's a bear, and he's in the hospital for weeks before he's released. Comes home, he's like, okay, wow, that sucked, but at least I'm happy to be alive, and goes to bed, and then wakes up the next morning, and his wife is like, why are your boxer shorts all torn up? And he's like, I have no idea.
I'll play your little game, honey. Why are my boxer shorts all torn up?
Check with the security guy. He's like, yeah, we thought it was a burglar, but look, there was a goddamn werewolf running around. And she goes like, wait, those are the same boxer shorts you woke up in. And he realizes he's the werewolf, or in this case, the Wolfman. And upon realizing this, suddenly a vampire, Zachariah, shows up in his house going like, yes, I saw everything, and I'm here to teach you what you are. And you're like, where the fuck did did you come from? But it's a whole thing of like, you're a werewolf now. I've been monitoring everything. And if nobody else is going to teach you, I will teach you all the ropes about being a werewolf. And what he decides, that him being a rich CEO, is that, you know what? I like to do a lot of philanthropy. And now that I have these powers, I'm going to be a superhero. Gets a lair, a tricked out car, and the two of them go out and fight crime.
Yeah.
And everything is hunky-dory, except the vampire has a lot of secrets.
Yeah.
He's sketchy
A vampire?
AF. Yes.
Really?
Yeah, believe it or not.
Wow.
Believe it or not.
It's got a lot of similarities in its tone to Invincible for sure, because same
very.
thing. I just got all these cool new powers. I want to be a superhero. And his mentor's like, yes, we'll be great together.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, I'm planning some really evil shit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Very, very, very much in tone with
Wait, but
with
is the
Invincible.
vampire's dad?
No, that would be simple enough.
I believe they made an animated short or something of it at some point.
I wouldn't be surprised. It was years ago that I read it, and I just reread it at least the first 10 issues again before coming over here just to get myself refreshed on it. And I think I liked it better rereading it now than I did even back when I read it the first time. And there's so much about it where it's like, man, this would make for a great series that somebody could develop and run with. I mean, with the popularity of the Invincible animated series, it'd be perfect for them to do a spinoff.
Yeah, no, I agree. And that book was so much, it's just fun. You read and you're like, this is fun.
It's fun, and it's got some twists and turns every issue.
Yeah.
And it just gets so tragic at points. And there's things that just happen to him that aren't even about him being a werewolf, that are just like, oh man.
yeah.
But I really, if you get any chance, you can run out and buy these books. And like I said, I think it's only 25 issues total. So you could read the whole thing.
You know, one of the things that I'm sad that doesn't really exist overall in werewolf filmed entertainment is that sort of concept of the werewolf who's in complete control. And there are quite a few books with this topic that are great. I always remember as a kid reading Anthony Boucher's The Complete Werewolf, which is about a guy who started where he had no control, but started to get where he could be completely have his human mind when he was the werewolf.
Yeah.
It was basically doing that. He's going out I'm helping people. I'm doing superhero stuff kind of. And it was great. And then I'm forgetting the name of the author, but there's a popular horror author who's written a whole bunch of stuff, but he has a brief, a 2-book series of a guy who's old school military dude. And they also set up, if you're a werewolf, you live an unnaturally long life as well. You know, you're not immortal, but you can live for 120, 130 years.
Yeah.
And he's this super badass soldier who's made a lot of money as sort of a soldier for hire, but only for the right people. But it's because he's secretly a werewolf who has total control over it. And it's like World War II, and he's fighting the Nazis, and you're like, control werewolf versus Nazis. Yes, why hasn't anyone made a movie of that shit? I kind of want to see that. But the only really filmed example I can even think of that comes close is Wolf Cop, which is a straight up bizarre, super cheesy comedy with with the guy turns into a werewolf, but he's got total control. And there's a sex scene between him in full werewolf form and a regular human that's hysterical.
I think I saw that.
Yeah, it's one of those playing, look how bad this movie is.
Yeah.
But it is pretty funny.
Is the cop's name Lou Garou?
I think so.
Okay, I did see that.
It's been a hot minute since I've seen it.
Yeah, Officer Lou Garou.
Play on the French word for werewolf. But I was going to say one of my favorite, and there's a lot of werewolf movies. There just aren't that many good werewolf movies. I mean, there's Wolfen. It's okay. There's The Howling. I liked it when I was a kid. Now I'm like, this isn't all that good except for the effects.
Oh, I love Howling, but I haven't watched it.
Go back and rewatch it,
years.
because last time I watched it, I was like, oh man, yeah, I'm ready for rewatch The Howling. Oh shit, this isn't very good.
No, I don't expect it to be good. I just expect it to give me those old feels.
Right.
How is In the Company of Wolves?
Yeah, I mean, it's good. It's another one of those that I'm like, man, when it's good, it's great, but a lot of it's kind of boring.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And there's a lot of ones that people go, oh, what about Brotherhood of the Wolf? I'm like, not really a werewolf movie.
Oh, is it not?
No, because in the end you're like, oh, that's not even a werewolf. It's something else entirely. Same with The Wolf of Snow Hollow, which I absolutely love that movie, but I can't really recommend it as a werewolf movie because it's not, right? The closest one I can think of recently that's really recommendable is Werewolf Within, I think, with the comedy one recently with the guy from Saturday Night Live. I'm blanking on.
Oh, with Sam Richardson?
Yeah, with Sam Richardson, which is done like a sort of murder comedy, like Clue, except it's like there was like a werewolf killing people. That's fun, but instead I'm just going to go with a sequence from an anthology, the all-time, one of the greatest horror Halloween anthologies ever, Trick or Treat, which is just terrific and fun and delightful. And there's the biggest sequence in it is a group of, young college-age girls who are going out partying, and they're dressed all hot for the party and everywhere, and they've invited the, like, douchey boys out to party. A young Anna Paquin is playing Little Red Riding Hood, who's, like, seems to be the real innocent one. Well, guess what? They're all werewolves, and they invited these douchey boys out to eat them. Oh, wow. And it's terrific. You're like, oh, that's good wolfing.
Okay. All right, well, that sounds better than what I thought you were going to pick, which was Twilight.
Why would I pick Twilight?
It's got werewolves.
Does it though? Does it? I mean,
you can't take that away from it.
I'm full points to Oz and Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Seth Green, always going to be one of my favorite. Say about Joss Whedon. Yeah, he's a dick, but Buffy was tight.
Okay. You know what? No, I am 100% here for you. And 10 years ago, I would have been like, oh yeah, Oz. But the last 2 times I've gone back and rewatched Buffy, I'm like, this sad boy, crybaby, all about me, can't control my emotions, motherfucker. No, I'm sorry, but I feel the same way about Angel. I'm like, no, fuck this guy. Go get some therapy. I don't care if you're a vampire. I don't care if you're a werewolf. Go get some therapy. Then you can date.
Well, if you talk to a therapist about how you're a bloodthirsty killer,
well, dude, in that
they have to report you to the police.
That world is so lousy with werewolves and vampires. You'd be like, there's got to be at least there's got to be specific therapists who are like,
especially in LA. Yeah. I mean, the way that they built out the infrastructure of the underworld in LA for the show Angel.
Yeah, there's at least as many vampires and werewolves as there are superheroes in the MCU. Right?
There are therapists available. These dudes just aren't seeking them out.
Time to get professional help out there, vampires and
werewolves. Well, dudes don't want to ask for help.
Yeah.
You get a little power.
I could ask for help. I could get some therapy. Or a 200-year-old man, could date a 16-year-old girl.
That does work in reverse.
Midlife
once
crisis.
Or twice. How do you know you're going to live for 400 years?
Well, you're not if you keep acting that way.
Dude, that girl's 16. I know, but she looks 14.
Oh, Jesus. There's a point of age where such minor things don't mean as much anymore. No, I don't.
No.
But don't worry, I'm going to turn her before she turns 18.
You always go, how are you still so fucked up and you're like 200 years old?
Right. You haven't figured it out yet.
Well, you literally haven't figured out it. I mean, like, I'm like in my 50s.
No, he's Zen because he does Tai Chi, you guys.
I'm in my 50s and I'm
very 90s.
I'm like definitely no more than I did when I was in my 20s by a significant margin. I'm still fucked up and wrong about stuff all the time, but God, compared to 20-something me, yeah, if I was 200, I have a feeling I wouldn't still be mooning after high school girls.
Right. Because the next day she'd be talking about stuff and you're like, how can I get out of this?
Oh my God. Please. Yeah. You would exclusively date other vampires, right? Only.
That's when you turn into like, what is his name from The Watchmen?
Dr. Manhattan.
Dr. Manhattan, and you're just sitting on Mars being like, these humans are so smart.
Boring, right? Why didn't
all the women who look my age are so young.
You had so much power. Why didn't you just make a female Dr. Manhattan as a companion? Just go.
So your betrothed, is she still looking at TikTok right now?
Yeah, that's what I figured. Oh. Anyway, that's it for our lycanthropy Lugaroo werewolf episode. I hope you had fun. I wish there were more werewolf episodes and shows and movies to recommend, but there aren't. I think there's a werewolf on Riverdale now, but there's everything on Riverdale now from what I hear.
Yeah,
apparently it's great. Like, if you like shows with all the monsters and shit tons of incest, Riverdale's your show.
Wait, what?
Yeah, no, it's like lousy with incest, apparently.
Is it really?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I know it's a kitchen sink show, but I didn't know incest was
No, it's like straight up horror, dark, like a pitch dark show crossed with like, I don't know, like Dallas or something.
Yeah.
But with all the dark, screwed up things you can imagine. And incest is a big part of it. So,
okay.
Yeah. That's what I was just found this out today. Someone was going episode by episode thing. I'm like, are you joking? Okay, anyway.
I don't even know why I'm shocked about that.
Yeah, no. Anyway, don't watch Riverdale, I guess, unless you want to. But watch these werewolf movies. And
definitely.
Also, like and subscribe. We really appreciate that.
Like and subscribe.
did you
I
miss
see
that?
what you did there.
How did you miss
Like
that?
and subscribe.
I win dad jokes
You
this
did-
week.
you win.
I'm the dad.
Sorry, she-